Hello and welcome back to my vlog, Tea Leaves by Francis S. Drake, Part 14. At 4:30 it was unanimously voted that the tea should not be landed. An effort was now made to dissolve the meeting, but it was continued at the request of some of those present from the country who wished to hear the result of Roch's application to the governor. It was an unusual time of the year to be at a country seat, but Governor Hutchinson was found at his Milton residence by Roch, who renewed his request for a pass. Questioned by the governor as to the intentions of the people, Roch replied that they only intended to force the tea back to England, but that there might be some who desired that the vessel might go down the harbor and be brought to by a shot from the castle, that it might be said that the people had done everything in their power to send the tea back. Catching at this straw with the instinct of a drowning man, Hutchinson offered Roch a letter to Admiral Montague commending ship and goods to his protection if Roch would agree to have his ship haul out into the stream. But he replied that none were willing to assist him in doing this, and that the attempt would subject him to the ill will of the people. Hutchinson then sternly repeated his refusal of a pass, as it would have been a direct countenancing and encouraging the violation of the Acts of Trade. Thus closed the last opportunity for concession. Who knows how tea will mingle with salt water? That's a quote from John Rowe, Old South Church, Boston, December 16, 1773. It is only fair to say that the performance of what he honestly believed to be his duty was as vital a consideration with Thomas Hutchinson, the royal governor, as opposition to measures which he believed to be hostile to the liberties of his country was to Samuel Adams, the popular leader. We can at this day well afford to mete out this tardy justice to a man whose motives and conduct have been so bitterly and unscrupulously vilified and maligned as have been known those of Thomas Hutchinson. When Roch returned and told the result of his application, it was nearly 6 o'clock. Darkness had set in, and the Old South, dimly lighted with candles, was still filled with an anxious and impatient multitude. "Who knows," said John Rowe, "how tea will mingle with salt water?" The people hurrahed vehemently, and the cry arose, "A mob! A mob!" A call to order restored quiet. Dr. Young then addressed the meeting, saying that Roch was a good man who had done all in his power to gratify the people, and charged them to do no hurt to his person or property. To the final question then put to him whether he would send his vessel back with the tea in her under the present circumstances, he replied that he could not, as he, quote, apprehended that a compliance would prove his ruin, end quote. He also admitted that if called upon by the proper persons, he should attempt to land the tea for his own security. Adams then arose and uttered the fateful words, "This meeting can do nothing more to save the country." This was doubtless the preconcerted signal for action, and it was answered by the men who sounded the war whoop at the church door. The cry was re-echoed from the gallery, where a voice cried out, "Boston Harbor a teapot tonight! Hurrah for Griffin's Wharf!" And the Mohawks passed on to cut the Gordian knot with their hatchets. Silence was again commanded when the people, after manifesting a most exemplary patience and caution in the methods they had pursued to preserve the property of the East India Company and to return it safe and untouched to its owners, perceiving that at every step they had been thwarted by the consignees and their coadjutors, then dissolved the meeting, giving 3 cheers as they dispersed. Meanwhile, a number of persons variously estimated at from 20 to 80, their number increasing as they advanced, some of them disguised as Indians and armed with hatchets or axes, hurried to Griffin's, now Liverpool, wharf, boarded the ships, and, warning their crews and the customs officers to keep out of the way, in less than 3 hours' time had broken and emptied into the dock 342 chests of tea, valued at 18,000 pounds. The deed was not that of a lawless mob, but the deliberate and well-considered act of intelligent as well as determined men. So careful were they not to destroy or injure private property that they even replaced a padlock they had broken. There was no noise nor confusion. They worked so quietly and systematically that those on shore could distinctly hear the strokes of the hatchets. As soon as the people learned what was going forward, they made their way to the scene of operations, covering the wharves in the vicinity, whence they looked on in silence during the performance. The night was clear, the moon shone brightly, no one was harmed, and the town was never more quiet. Next day, the Dorchester shore was lined with tea, carried thither by the wind and tide. The serious spirit in which this deed was regarded by the leaders is illustrated by the act of one who, after assisting his apprentice to disguise himself, dropped upon his knees and prayed fervently for his safety and the success of the enterprise. Among the spectators of the scene were Dr. John Prince of Salem, John Andrews, and Dr. Hugh Williamson, who afterwards underwent an examination respecting the affair before the British House of Commons. Where is now the wide Atlantic Avenue, the old footpath under Fort Hill, known as Flounder Lane, and afterwards as Broad Street, wound around the margin of the water. C Street was its continuation to Wheeler's Point, the foot of Summer Street. Opposite where Hutchinson, now Pearl Street, entered Flounder Lane was Griffin's Wharf. The laying out of Broad Street and Atlantic Avenue and the consequent widening and filling in have resulted in obliterating Griffin's Wharf, although Liverpool Wharf it has as a legitimate successor. The old dock logs were found near the center of the avenue. The coal office of the Messrs. Chapin now occupies the site rendered memorable by the exploit of the Boston Tea Party. That wasn't a very exciting recounting of the Boston Tea Party, but I guess it was a quiet affair. More tomorrow. Make it a great day, and bye for now.